Google codes? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's in-service. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to pass over to Mrs. Sheldon so that she can begin sharing her screen with our presentation.
Okay, give me a quick thumbs up if you've got my screen. Hopefully, okay. All right, thanks for joining us. There are a couple of new names to me. I'm Lori Sheldon. I'm the district's technology integration coach, former third grade teacher, and I'm here to help you with all things tech integration. So what I want us to do first is just breathe. There are stressors everywhere. And after being in school for a few days, you felt them probably a little stronger than before. I mean, we all have concerns about our own family's health. We have all kinds of concerns. And what I'm going to have you do right now is kind of put them in a box, put them on the shelf just for the next hour so that we can talk through some of what we're going to do with Wayne Highlands School District Live. And know that when you get stressed, just come back to this image. So today, the purpose is to just take this in. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach because every one of you have a different teaching style. Your kids have different learning styles. You have different comfort levels. And what we're going to ask is if you have questions, put them in the chat because what we'll do is we'll address those at the end. So today we're discussing what is this live format? What are some best practices when you have kids in front of you and kids online? How do you prepare lessons for both environments? We've done a ton with Google Classroom in the spring, but I know we have some newer faces. We're going to talk about some best practices, and you'll have this entire presentation at the end. So you'll be able to go back and click videos, links, all of that stuff. We're going to talk about how to screencast, and that means how do you record your screen? Because we are required to do videos, but you don't have to be the star of your video. So we'll talk about how to record your screen. We're using Zoom to connect live, so we're going to talk about the best way to set up meetings for that and schedule things and how to record. And we're going to touch on digital assessments. So as you're aware, Mr. Miller worked with the school board and we are getting K-8 one-to-one iPads for our students. That initiative will be exciting, but that is weeks out yet. They have to come in and then we have to configure the devices. So some of this for high school folks, you've got devices and you can develop a plan. For our younger grades, know that that's coming and you can create digital assessments for kids at home. I won't spend a ton of time on that, but I'll give you some resources because every building is doing things a little differently. So what are the expectations of that option 2, the Wayne Highlands School District Live? You're to have Zoom open during your class with your participants muted so that your kids who can connect with you synchronously will do that. But keep in mind, we have situations where there are families with multiple children, daycare situations, all kinds of different barriers. They may not be able to connect with you live. So we are to provide instructional videos in our Google Classroom, either recording yourself, recording your Zoom lesson, or providing other materials. So keep in mind, keep things simple. As a tech integration coach, I normally champion everything that you want to try, but I'm going to suggest that this isn't the year to put on the super teacher cape and try everything new. Keeping it simple and sticking to a routine, picking a format and staying with it is extremely important. You don't want to change things midstream. I've seen amazing things. I'll be honest with you. I've seen Bitmoji classrooms. I've seen some really cool things from Teachers Pay Teachers. Hold on one second, I'm going to shut the door. And while normally I think those things are awesome, I'm going to actually caution you. Cute and visually busy doesn't mean effective. So I'm not saying don't do those things, but that's probably not where you want to be putting your time and effort right now. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And we all have people getting excited over some digital things they're finding and sharing it. It's very easy to get overwhelmed, especially if, like for some of us, this is like our first year teaching all over again. It's okay to not try everything, and that's okay. The other thing you're going to have to do, just like you would teach expectations your first day, your first week of school and routines, you're going to have to do it with all of this too, so that your kids in front of you and your kids at home know what to expect. The other thing that's really important is communication, keeping everybody on the same page. So Google Classroom is great because it's a walled garden, your kids can get in, it's a great hand-in, handout resource, a place to put your materials. Awesome. But the only way parents can see it is if they are logged in as the child or they sign up for Guardian summaries. So what you might consider doing is creating a Google site, even just a one-pager with even just your policies or procedures or who you are, what you teach, where you teach, what your codes are, contact information. And when you get this presentation, this link will take you to how to build a Google site. Not something you have to do, it's an option. And it's front facing, so parents don't have to be in classroom to see it. If you have other methods of communication with home that work for you, great. If you're looking at this list and thinking, I do emails and phone calls, great. If that works for you, it's not necessarily the time to try something new. Okay, so over on your right-hand side of the screen is a really cool quote that I found when I was reading up on this learning model. What we did in the spring was phenomenal. You took face-to-face instruction with snap of a finger in weeks, had it completely digital. That's not remote learning, that's crisis teaching. It was a matter of, okay, I have X amount of weeks, what can I possibly convey, what do I have to convey, how am I gonna do this? It was truly amazing, but this is not what we're facing now. Now we have time to actually plan, and the process will be different. The district sent out an article weeks ago on how to create lessons for both the hybrid model, so kids in front of you and kids at home. This stands out. Something that's not changing is your curriculum, your standards, your anchors. None of that changes. The way you're conveying it might change, and we can work through some of those things, but don't build two separate lessons. Build one main lesson, and then we can figure out how to plug things in digitally for them. Okay, so you are required to provide video of your lessons, and I explained that before. So you have some options. You can record the Zoom, and you can pause Zoom if you have, like, you're giving direct instruction, your kids are working, you hit pause on the recording for a while. You can do that. When you end the Zoom meeting, the recording pops up. We'll go through that. So you can opt to record your Zoom. If I put myself back in my third grade classroom years ago and I'm thinking through how to do this now, initially I was like, okay, I don't want that pressure. I think what I would do is record my lessons ahead of time. And then I realized there aren't enough hours in the day. So I would probably then record my Zoom instead. But know that you can screencast and you can record lessons in other ways. Also, there's a lot of good pre-made content online. When I teach a class to teachers, if I'm looking for video content, I will first see if someone's done what I'm trying to do better, and I'll use that. If I feel I can do it better, I make a video. So you have some different options. And it's all going to truly depend on these two things, your comfort level and what time you have. You might decide, okay, I'm going to pre-record all my lessons, and then time gets ahead of you. It might just be easier to hit record on Zoom. And there are ways that you can do Zoom so that you're not the star of the show. So keep in mind, you don't have to have your photo or your picture in there, but also keep in mind, there's something to be said for that personal connection at home with the kids. We have pre-made content for you on a website called K-12 Learning Opportunities. It's sorted by grade level, or excuse me, it's sorted by subject. If you click the subject, you will find there are various sites like Hippocampus, Khan Academy, PBS Learning Media, some really rich places that have good content. YouTube does as well. And there's a website called View Pure where you can throw a YouTube video in and it clarifies it. So it takes away all of the ads, the next videos. All the kids see is a screen with the video. And that's in the resources as well. Okay, so insert, take deep breath here. Let's talk about Google Classroom. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. On the news this morning, there were 3 new cases in Wayne County. We just don't know. So if we have the opportunity to get our kids in front of us, probably the very first thing we do other than a greeting is show them how to navigate Google Classroom, how the code works, how to get in there. We do not have a way in Google Classroom to switch from teacher view to student view. They don't have that created yet, and we cannot create 230 more student emails for you to test. What you can do is ask a child to borrow his or her login and go through and walk through the process with them. Show them how to get to the classwork tab. That's where the assignments are, depending on how you have it laid out. It's a really good opportunity to walk them through that so that we're ready with whatever comes our way. Having done this for a while, and some of my high school folks have been with this from the beginning, like going back 3 or 4 years, there are some things that we've done that seem to work best. If you organize your assignments by topics, it's like putting them in folders. So you could assign topics. They could be literally weeks, like put by date. They could be put by subject. They could be put by topic, whatever you want to do there. And I'll show you what this looks like in just a second. You also might consider using emojis with topics just to visually draw attention to them. And I'll show you that in a second. The other thing is, if you were with us in the spring and you did the Google training that was laid out for you in June, when I created that training, in my brain I thought it made sense. I had various links for you to go to. You had to do some screenshots. You had to do some things. It got very confusing. So when I taught my class this summer, my G Suite class, I changed it all up. I made one Google document that had every link on it that I wanted them to do and every instruction for the assignment. The only other thing was if I needed them to create a Google Doc, like it made a copy for them and it came back, I assigned that separately. But consider using a Google Doc or slide with all of your instructions. It's a one-stop shop, and I'll show you that in a second. Also, when you pick something that works, be consistent. Don't try to change things up midstream just as your kids are getting used to things. And set very clear expectations, just like you would for your students in front of you. This is an example of the Google Classroom I used this summer. And on a Mac, the Control, Command, Shift key brings up your emojis. There are other ways to get them. That's like one of 3 ways. You'll see like course information. I used a red push pin. So anything with that topic, and there were 3 things under that topic, if they clicked them on the left, it was kind of like a shortcut. It brought them to the 3 important things there. So sometimes using emojis will help separate things, but those topics are nice little shortcuts over on the side. It helps to sort the weeks and the content. This is an example of a Google Doc. I wanted my teachers to go to 3 websites and view 1 video. So I threw in a little table. I put it in there with the links, and then I gave them the instructions for the assignment in one spot. So I didn't use the description in the assignment in Google Classroom. I let them know that they would always have their instructions in one Google Doc, and you'll see that they have their totally awesome journal. That was a Google Doc they had to complete, and it took them back out to it. So this is not a place where you would put, like, here's your journal that you need to complete. That you would still assign, make a copy for each student. But this, giving instructions in one spot might not be a bad idea. If you're brand new to Google Classroom, we have a website for you, and that will be linked, and it'll be in this presentation as well. If you were here last year, it's the same website, the Sheldon Resources website. There is a link for remote and hybrid learning. That was everything from last year, but I tried to organize it a little better alphabetically. So under tutorials, there's a whole section on Google Classroom, and it goes through everything on how to create a classroom to how to assign, and they're short little 2-minute video clips for you to revisit. Okay, insert, take deep breath here, take a drink of coffee, and now we're going to talk about Zoom. Before I go too far, Zoom should be installed on your laptop. If you have a school laptop, it's in the self-service app where you can go to Zoom and download it. Immediately I get emails from folks saying it's asking for an administrative password. On my website, there's a whole thing on Zoom that talks you through how to do all of this. There's a whole page on Zoom. But basically, if you install it just for you and that option comes up, it doesn't ask for an administrative password. So we're going to be looking at Zoom on the internet, on the web, and Zoom the program. You're going to want it installed on your computer if you haven't already. I can't demonstrate Zoom while I'm in a Zoom, so unfortunately you're going to watch a few videos. If they lag, don't worry, you're getting this presentation in its entirety at the end.
Here is how you can set up a reoccurring Zoom meeting. It's easiest to do from the web. Instead of opening Zoom, go to zoom.us and then sign in, signing in with Google. While we're in the settings, if you take a look at the profile, you can add a photo of yourself here. We suggest you do that. If I go to meetings, I can schedule a new meeting. And let's say this is my first period class. I can decide when this starts. I can decide it's a recurring meeting. What I'm going to suggest is that you just say no fixed time. Have it generate the meeting ID automatically. You can change the security by typing something different in here. You can enable or not enable the waiting room. It depends. You can decide to allow video for host or participants. Mute people upon entry. I wouldn't suggest recording automatically, but here are the settings that you can do. So if I do this and I set this meeting up, what that means is every day first period, the same meeting room will come up, the personal ID, or the ID will come up in the same passcode. The reason I'm not suggesting doing a schedule here is because that gets very complicated. Because you can say, set it up so it happens every day, but then you can't take out the weekends, it gets complicated. So if I say no fixed time, and I save that, I'm going to add it to my Google Calendar for me if I choose to, or what I can do is copy this invitation, and in Google Classroom, I could put this in here. I would take out the dial probably. I would actually just probably put in, here's the Zoom meeting link, the ID, and the passcode, and put this in Google Classroom. And that way, every day first period, when you start the first period meeting, it's ready to go. The link doesn't change, the passcode doesn't change. I could add that to my Google Calendar if I chose to. I'm not going to right now. And then to set up a new meeting, because maybe you want to have, if you're teaching by class period, you have different ones set up. If you're elementary and you keep the same kids for a full day, there's no need to make a separate one. And I'm going to come back to meetings and schedule a meeting. Maybe this is my second period class. Again, I decide when it starts. It's recurring, no fixed time, and that way it doesn't matter if for whatever reason first period's delayed. You don't have to worry about that you said it was from this time to this time, start and stop times. So again, have it automatically generate the meeting ID, set the password or type the password, enable the waiting room or not, and then save that. Copy the invitation to the link, and this is what I'd put in my second period Google Classroom. So that is how you can set up meetings that reoccur, and that way you're not setting up a meeting every day for every group. If I'm in Zoom and I now go look at my meetings, notice they come up here. So I created them on the web because I have more options, but then when I'm ready to start my first period meeting, I come here and I hit start. Ready to start second period, I do here, start. And what's nice is by letting it generate the meeting IDs, they're different for each class period, so you won't have a mix of kids in the wrong spot.
I just want to throw in here too, if you're elementary, obviously do what works best for you, but keep the simplicity concept in mind. If you create one Zoom link or two for the day, like morning and afternoon, your families only have to worry about that. If you create a Zoom link for every subject or topic you teach, they're going to have to know to click that. Also, you could pause a recording as you're going through your morning, and I think we get 40 minutes before Zoom times out. So that's an option too. I would just strongly urge elementary to consider not creating more than two. It just gets complicated.
Your Zoom settings. This won't be a one-size-fits-all. This is going to be dependent upon your style and preference. So the easiest thing to do is to go to zoom.us on the web and sign in. And from here, it's going to bring you into your settings. Take a minute in profile. It's a good idea to put an image of you here, and that's where you can do that. But let's go down to settings. This is where you can enable or disable the waiting room. This is a good idea so that you can make sure only your kids are getting in. Your Zoom links will be shared through Google Classroom, so they'll be pretty secure. And if you don't want to be bothered with that, you just want to click it because you have other things to attend to, and you don't want to make sure you admit each person in, turn this off. That's okay. You can allow participants to join before you. That's up to you. You can decide to mute people when they come in. And this is going to be a big decision here. Do you allow the chat or don't you? Do you allow private chat or not? This is tricky because your students can chat with each other. Keep in mind, you can see everything that's sent in the private chat, just like anyone hosting a Zoom meeting can see all of the private chat messages. The chat could be handy if students have questions for you, or it could just be a distraction for you as you're trying to teach, and maybe you'll have a different method that they reach out with questions. Again, completely up to you. Do you want to be the only one to be able to screen share or let everyone? Again, personal preference here. Disable desktop or screen share. You can disable the annotations and the ability for them to share the whiteboard. This is kind of neat. This is the raising hands thing and the clapping thing. Can you allow them nonverbal feedback? That's up to you. And as you go down through here, there are some more settings that you want to take a look at. Do you want to allow them to use virtual backgrounds and filters? So it's worth taking a scan through all of these. As you can see, there's just a few settings there. It's easier to set things up here versus starting a meeting and changing your settings as you go. So those are just a few things to keep in mind. Again, these will be personal preference when you're deciding to set up a Zoom meeting. Sharing in Zoom. This will become probably very handy to you because anything that you can show on this screen, your computer screen, can be projected on your interactive surface through your projector and seen by the kids at home. So it's kind of a one size fits all, which if you're comfortable with, you could then record that and that could be your recorded lesson. That's one option. That's not the way you have to do things, but we're going to show you a few different options here. Okay, so you can hit share screen and start your meeting that way, but I'm going to just open up a new meeting. Okay, from here, when I go to share screen, notice I can pick a whiteboard, I can pick an iOS device. I'm going to pick my desktop and hit share so that anything I can project on here and get on this screen can be shared out. So for example, if I have a dock camera, I can bring that up here. Students in my classroom can see it. It can be recorded or just shown live for the students at home. And when you're done, you do stop the screen share. As mentioned before, anything that you can put up on your computer screen can be shared through Zoom and on your interactive surface. So you may opt to, in the interest of time, record your lessons as you're teaching them. That's completely up to you. I'm going to show you how to record Zoom for that purpose. So I'm going to go into a new meeting. We're going to assume my meeting's going on. I'm going to click record. Please ignore that. I'm trying to record and it's getting very confused. Okay, so this is recording right now. I know it's recording because right up here, I see that it's recording. I can pause it. I can stop it when I'm done. Notice I have the same settings down here. When I'm done, and when I end the meeting, it's going to give me a prompt that it's converting my video. The longer the video, the longer it will take. So notice the path, it's saving it in my documents folder in a Zoom folder. So I'm going to hit save. And what's nice is it brings it up right away. What I like is it has the audio only version and it has the video version that you can put right in Google Drive and upload to Classroom. This is all going to depend on personal preference and style. Also know that if something happens in a recording and you need to edit it, you can do that in iMovie. Is it time consuming? Absolutely. But could it be done? Yes. Just some options for you.
The question has been raised, and you've probably heard the answer to this. Is it okay to record student audio? You are ultimately wanting your video trained on either you or your screen with screen share or your board, something like that, not turned around facing the children. You're allowed to have their voices in the video because it's an educational document. It's not going out on YouTube. It's staying within Google Drive and in Google Classroom, so it's in our nice walled garden. At the end of the year, we're required to delete those. So you are allowed to record audio with student voice in it. Sometimes we all know those discussions that happen in your classroom are as rich as the instruction itself, so it might be worth recording Zoom for that reason. Okay, so how would you record your screen? We just looked at Zoom, and if you wanted your video in it, like sometimes when I make tutorials, if I want my video in there, I'll just open Zoom meeting and record without participants. But there is a whole page on how to screencast, which is recording video and audio using an iPad, using a phone, using your computer. If you're a PC user, I'm going to suggest you use Zoom to do your screencast recordings. There are other tools, but that just seems to work the best. We're going to walk through just some options for the Mac specifically. This is a buffet, so we're going to show you a couple different options here. The first one is your Mac. If you are a classroom teacher who received a Mac last year, you have something built in. If you hold your Shift key, your Command key, and hit 5, and we'll show you a video of this in a second, a screen recorder comes up. So that's one option. We all have Photo Booth on the Mac, and that will record you too. We have Zoom. If you have a document camera previously assigned to you, that's an option as well. Please know that this isn't meant for you to say, I need a document camera. This is for those that have it. In our elementaries specifically, a lot of our PTAs and PTOs purchased them for the teachers previously, and this is just how you can make use of a document camera. An iPad can also be used. So a couple quick video clips, hang in there. This is using the Shift Command 5 concept.
You can make a screencast or record your screen right on your Mac. I'm going to walk you through how to do that. if you press the key combinations Shift Command 5, these options come up. If you take notice, this will capture the entire screen, or just a window, or just a portion of the screen. I want to record the entire screen, so these are just pictures, but these are your videos. So if I want to record my entire screen, I come over to Options, and from here I get to decide where I want my finished video sent. I usually send it to my desktop so I can find it easily. The countdown timer, using the built-in microphone, showing mouse clicks and those. When you're ready, you hit record, and it'll count you down. And right now it's recording my screen, and I know it is because right up here is my record button. When I'm finished, I hit this, and see it pop down here. It's going to save on my desktop as a screen recording. And from there I can upload it to Google Drive or YouTube.
Okay, this was created in the spring. We aren't uploading to YouTube with students in it. I upload to YouTube almost all of my tutorials because I like the way it processes the video better. So if you're creating content for your kids and there are no student voices in it, you can use YouTube. If you're recording a Zoom, you cannot use YouTube to host your videos. We're using Google Drive instead.
You open Photo Booth, and if you don't see it in your dock, it's in the rocket ship, the applications. Go to the spotlight and search for it. And notice I'm going to pick, this is take a still picture, but this is take a video. So when I switch to this becomes a video camera. So it's going to count me down, 3, 2, 1, record. So I'm recording right now. And then when I get finished, I hit stop. It lands here, and I drag this to my desktop.
Sorry about that.
All right, let's take a look at how to use your dock cam with Live. So I'm going to plug my IPvo in. I have my Zoom meeting going. Down next to Start Video, I'm going to come here and select my IPvo as my camera and start my video. Place my document under here. I'll focus it. You want to make sure your camera is set to single focus, not continual focus, because we don't need to make anyone seasick. And notice that my document is upside down. It's viewable upside down to me, but on the student view, it's right side up. So that's the only tricky spot right now. You have to have the document placed this way. It will look backwards to you, but you can still read it off of the actual paper. You want to be able to write on a worksheet or draw, and you want to use Zoom. So what we've got set up is teacher view, student view. Notice I had to move my camera this way in front of the document, and then when I write on it, it shows up this way. So it's going to be a matter of positioning your camera, and know that it's going to look backwards for you, but it won't for the student view. If we can find a way to fix that, we will, but at this point, it's just something we're going to have to work with.
Okay. So we're using Google Drive to host the videos because then when you pull them into Classroom from there, the permissions are correct. So this is just a short clip to show you what that looks like. And again, I can't stress this enough. Don't put anything with student voice out on YouTube. Use Google Drive.
Goes to Google Drive. So it doesn't matter whether you have a Zoom video, a screen recording, or something from Photo Booth. If from photo booth, you can drag it right out and onto your desktop. Screen recordings you can set to save right to your desktop. Zoom, it will open the folder and you can drag the video to your desktop. I suggest desktop because it makes things easier. In Google Drive, you might consider creating a folder for your topics. Don't use the classroom folder that Google makes automatically, but this might be a really good time to think about organizational strategies. So let's say I create a new folder and, oops, period 1 live videos. Okay, so they're right here. Then I can literally drag the videos in and you'll see they'll upload. And they're here. The reason I suggest creating the folder first is then I can double click the folder and see my videos. The nice part is when I assign these to Classroom, the permissions are already set.
Okay, and the last big piece of the puzzle is digital assessments. There are hundreds of tools that you can use to assess digitally for your kids at home and for the high school iPads and eventually for all of the iPads. I'm not going to go through each one right now, but some of the ones that work really, really well that we've used are Socrative, Google Forms, Flipgrid, Kahoots, and Quizzes. What I've got for you is, when you get this presentation in just a bit, there's a whole page on my site with formative assessment tools, and it has the more common ones, getting started guides. Some of them are really good for just review. Some of them are great for exit tickets, and some of them, like Socrative, Google Forms, allow you to self-check, or it self-checks for you in grades. So there's lots of different things, and Flipgrid is amazing for recording a prompt for your students and they record back to you. If those aren't enough tools, there's 75 more, and there's even more here. So there are lots of different digital assessment tools that you could be taking a look at. If you're unsure what would work best for you, please reach out once we get started. So what's next? Okay, so we're starting Tuesday, but I still want you to take that deep breath and weigh these options. Think about what's going to work best for you. Discuss it with your team if you choose to. Know that you don't have to do what everyone else is doing. Do what works for you. Dive into some of those videos a little bit deeper. You'll have a copy of this presentation soon too, and reach out via email with any questions that you might have. This is the website that has all kinds of tutorials on it. Notice we've got Google Classroom, all Google tools. Here are your screen recordings, but there's one specific to Zoom. We're in the process of building up parent information. Here's our K-12 learning opportunities site that has a lot of pre-made content, and then all of the tutorials. So at this point, what I would like to do is stop what I'm doing and ask Nicole if there are any questions.
We only had one question that came in, and it was, is it possible to go over screencasting with the iPad? And what are the trade-offs versus doing that with the Mac?
I would do the Mac if at all possible. The only time I switch to an iPad is if there's something specific to the iPad. So for example, I'm making a video for freshmen. I teach them how to use their iPads. I can't do that on a Mac, I have to do it on an iPad. So I would really only use the iPad if there's something specific to the iPad that I need to demonstrate. And that there is a screencasting page on my website that walks through how to do it on the iPad.
And that was our only question, but if there's anything else, please put it in the chat. That way we can get out there, or if we need to talk to you specifically about your particular situation, we can do that too.
And if you haven't filled out, Nicole, would you mind putting the presentation link and the Google Form link back in the chat? When we're done recording, It'll take a little bit, but everyone in the district will have a copy of this so that you can revisit it, but Nicole's giving you the slide presentation. Okay, then what I'm going to ask you to do is reach out if you have specific questions. Email is best because we're kind of multitasking as a department right now, but we're happy to help you. Email is the easiest way for me, anyway, I should say. I don't think many of us are sitting at our desks right now. We are here for you. Please reach out if you have any questions, and at this time, we're going to conclude the meeting.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Sheldon, and everyone for participating. Like Mrs. Sheldon said, if you have any questions, please let us know. If not, have a wonderful day. Thank you, Mrs. Sievers, as well. Have a great day, everyone.